From 1898, for the next 22 years, Eugenia Falleni lived life as a man by the name of Harry Crawford. In 1913, Harry Crawford got a job at the home of Dr. Gotha Clark in Wahroonga. He had a magnificent mansion on what was then called Lane Cove Road in Wahroonga. It's now the Pacific Highway. And Harry Crawford got a job as a general rouseabout and looking after Dr. Clark's horses and sulkies. And it was at the home of Dr. Clark that Harry met Annie Burkett, and they fell in love. And the following year, 1913, Harry Crawford and Annie Burkett were married here at the Methodist parsonage in Montague Street, Balmain. And the Reverend of the Methodist Church who married them was Reverend F.W. Hines, whose name appears on this memorial stone here. Father Hines married them in a traditional marriage ceremony. He, of course, had no idea of the true identity of the husband that he was marrying on that particular day. In 1920, Balmain was very much a working class suburb. It was a rough suburb. There was a lot of crime, there was a lot of violence. It was not the genteel suburb that it is today. There's a police lockup just further down the street that was a very, very busy police station, and it was of a very different character to what it is today. Just across the road from here is a shop, which is where Harry Crawford and Annie Burkett first lived after they were married. And they moved here because downstairs there was a confectionery shop, and they lived upstairs in the flat together with Annie's son from her first marriage, Harry Burkett Jr. When Harry Crawford and Annie Burkett moved away from Balmain, they came to live here in Drummoyne, and they moved to a house in a street called the Avenue, Drummoyne, and this is that street. It's no longer called the Avenue, it's now called Gipp Street. But the house that they moved into initially was number 5, the Avenue, and then a little while later they moved into number 7, the Avenue in Drummoyne. And it was from this street, from their house in this street, that they went for the fateful picnic to the Lane Cove River Park on Friday the 28th of September 1917. 8 months before they went for that picnic, Annie Burkett had discovered the true identity of her husband in circumstances that are described in the book. Very unusual and tortuous circumstances. And it was really those 8 months and what happened during those 8 months that led to both Harry Crawford and Annie Burkett going for the picnic on that fateful day. Today, as indeed in 1917 when Annie Burkett died, this is a particularly remote part of the park. It's a section of the park that is very rarely used by picnickers and bushwalkers. We're standing about maybe 100 metres away from Stringybark Creek. If you go that way along Stringybark Creek, you come to the Lane Cove River. In 1917 there was a wharf there, and Harry Crawford and Annie Burkett would have got a launch from Fig Tree Wharf up to the wharf here at Stringybark, got off the launch and walked along a track that comes along the banks of Stringybark Creek, and then near here just starts to come up the hill towards the northeast, heading in the vague direction of Mowbray Road. You can probably hear the cars in the background. Those are cars on Epping Road, which of course was built much, much later. I have not been able to find the location of the actual picnic that Annie Burkett and Harry Crawford had, but it was somewhere like this. It was a bit of a clearing, it was a fairly flat spot, there were rocks behind them, there were the sort of trees and bush that's around us now. There was an Angophora tree in front of the rock, which doesn't, there isn't one here. But it was at a place just like this, and within 100 metres or so of here, probably buried under Epping Road now, that fateful picnic took place where Annie Burkett died. This is the old Central Police Station, which amazingly was the headquarters of the New South Wales Police for many, many years. And it was here that Eugenia was brought when she was arrested at the Empire Hotel at Annandale, and brought here by Detective Sergeant Robson and another officer. And she was initially taken upstairs to the top floor, which is where the CIB was, the Criminal Investigation Branch. They've got little interview rooms there where she was interviewed, and as you'll read in the book, it was there that her true gender was first discovered. She was brought here as Harry Crawford from the Empire Hotel, initially interviewed as Harry Crawford, and during the course of that interview, in a way which is fully discussed in the book, her gender emerged, her true gender emerged. And it emerged really through what I would call some trickery on the part of Sergeant Robson, who I think had some idea of what her true gender was and what her true identity may have been. We're now on level 4 of the old headquarters of the New South Wales Police. This was the floor where the CIB was, and this is a general room that would have been used by the CIB. As you can see, it's in a state of complete disrepair now because it hasn't been used really since the Sydney Police Centre was established in Surrey Hills. Just down the corridor here, we're going to go to an interview room, and it was actually the interview room where Eugenia was interviewed by Sergeant Robson. This is the remains of what was a typical interview room. It's quite a small room. There was a sign above the door outside in the corridor telling people not to come in if there was any interview taking place. And this is where the interview took place, where Eugenia answered questions of Sergeant Robson, and ultimately where she disclosed to him her real identity in a situation which was very traumatic for her. The first room that a prisoner would be brought into from outside in the yard. It used to be the original charge room. It's now just a meal room for corrective services officers. But the dock was along this wall, fingerprinting was in here, the reading of the charge would have taken place here, the charge book was kept here. It was the nerve centre of charging of prisoners in central Sydney. These are the cells that prisoners are kept in when they're waiting to appear in the Central Local Court, what was called the Central Police Court. And Eugenia would have been brought in through the main entrance of the police station and placed into one of these cells after she was processed in the charge room, photographed, had her fingerprints taken, and the usual procedures. This is one of the cells of the complex here, and this is an original cell door which is still being used. And this is a typical cell that Eugenia would have been kept in overnight between the afternoon that she was arrested and the next morning when she went before the Central Police Court. It's a little bit different. Obviously there would have been a wooden bench here rather than a metal bench. The toilet would have been a porcelain toilet rather than a metal one. But otherwise, the layout of the cell is pretty much as it would have been. This is a room which is now used as a recreation room, as you can see. But until maybe only 10 or 20 years ago, it was used as an exercise room for prisoners. Up here we've got a whole lot of grills that look really solid now, and then above that there's a proper roof. But until about 20, 30 years ago, it was actually a fairly insubstantial grill and then completely open to the air. And a prisoner actually escaped from here, and it was only then that they built a much more substantial grill system and roof. And what they would do is the prisoners would be brought from the cells into here to be able to exercise. But this area was also used for photographing prisoners. And the photograph that's the best known one of Eugenia, which was taken on the day of her arrest, was actually taken in this room here. Now you can see along this edge here that there is a bench. This bench, I think, is probably the original bench, or it's certainly in the same place as the original bench. And in some of the photographs that were taken of Eugenia on the day of her arrest, you can actually see this bench here. So I would assume that the photographs were taken in that corner just over there. Those toilets were not there. And you can actually see that the shape of the wall and the ceiling and the placing of the bench is the same as in that photograph of her, which is on the front of the book. Now if you come this way, this is the passageway. The prisoners were taken to the Central Police Court. They would come along here, go down the stairs, along an underground passageway and up straight into the courtroom. This is one of the two main courts in this complex. The only difference between today and 1920, apart from microphones, is that this glass panel was not there, it was just an open dock. This is the way that Eugenia would have come down from the Central Police Station, accompanied by Detective Sergeant Robson, when he brought her to the Central Police Court on the first day of her appearance in court. And he would have taken her around to here, and in that side door, I suspect, rather than the front entrance where all the public came. So she would have gone into the court complex through here, as opposed to the underground passageway.